Jimmy Hyams, nice enough to join us each and every Wednesday, and he's looking dapper. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Dave, I'm doing great. I hope you are as well.
I am. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way because I know this was pressing on your mind. By the way, Caleb, how are you, sir?
Thank you, Dave. I'm doing great.
Sorry, Jimmy outshined
Dave is not detail oriented the way Billy Napier is.
That's true. That's true. I can't count my losses as much. But I do want, Jimmy, I know this is pressing on your mind. You kept texting me yesterday and you're like, where is this? Where are you with this? So just so you know, bench off 2024, I was able to bench Caleb's body weight 13 times. So I know that it was bugging you, and I'm sorry I couldn't get back. It was a busy day, but John Adams refused to even take part in the fun, but I've got the video to prove it. So I just want to lay that to rest.
That's impressive. I didn't know Caleb was that light.
Yeah, I'm a pretty small guy.
He's $155. That played into the equation. It definitely did.
Got a very petite body, guys.
Very petite body. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this, and it's going to be a part of our poll question. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. It is today's tough question. I'll remind you that Jimmy's appearance is brought to you by our good friends at Ray Varner Ford. I'll tell you more about them here momentarily. Oh, that is the wrong one. Let's go with today's tough question.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, let's start with Dylan Sampson, who was doing my research on statistics in the SEC. He's averaging right at 120 yards per game. No other running back in the SEC is averaging 100 yards rushing per game. He very well and will most likely eclipse Gene McEver's all-time record for most touchdowns in a season. He is just one away from that, I believe. Rushing. I believe he's just one away from that. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm just curious. I'll open this up. We have some years, some seasons by former Vols that we want to throw at you. You've covered most of these people. I don't think you covered Reggie White in 83. But as far as Dylan Sampson's season, how does it compare in your mind to some other legendary Tennessee Vols season? Just 1 year, not the entire career.
And are you talking about running backs or anybody?
I'm talking about anybody. I'm wide open.
Yeah, my first thought was running backs, and my first comparison was the year that Travis Stevens had when he gained over 1,400 yards in 2001. And a lot of people thought he was the third best back among a group that included folks like Gerald Riggs and there was another Cedric Houston. Mm-hmm. But he ended up having a great season. He rushed for over 220 yards against Florida at the end of the year. He had 41 carries in a win over Arkansas. He had a great single season. Travis Henry had some great seasons as well for Tennessee as a running back. I mean, if you start talking about players all the time, I mean, Peyton Manning has to be in that group. You're right, I did not cover Reggie White. Eric Berry was a phenomenal football player. Can't ignore him. Can't ignore Al Wilson and what he was able to do. Heath Shuler was a great football player. There have been some great individual players that Tennessee has had through the years. But if I were to go running backs, this will be the most productive running back season since Travis Stevens in 2001.
Pretty strong. Caleb?
Jimmy, I agree. And Travis Stevens, I think Dylan Sampson actually is on pace to break Travis Stevens' rushing record in 2001.
He is.
Yeah. And before that, there was obviously the Jay Graham season, and wasn't it 95 where that was the record before Travis Stevens.
Yeah.
But going beyond the running backs real quick, I just want to throw out some, and again, not players, because, it's hard to say Dylan Sampson's Peyton Manning or Al Wilson, but I'm talking about, the single seasons, that Manning 97 season, let's take the Al Wilson 98 season, actually, where he was the only All-American on the team. Is there an argument that Dylan Sampson's having a better season individually than Al Wilson had on that 98 team?
You could make an argument from this perspective. Al Wilson missed 2.5 games that year.
He did.
He wasn't always there. I don't think he played in the Arkansas game, if I'm not mistaken. So if you talk about production and durability, I would take what Sampson's doing over Al Wilson. Now, the leadership qualities were on another level when you talk about Al Wilson. But yeah, I just based on on his availability so far and what he's done, what he's meant to this team, I think you can make a strong argument for Sampson over Al Wilson.
And Jimmy, I'm curious because you go back a couple of years more than me. How many times have you seen the running back be the leader of not just the offense, but maybe the entire team? It's not like quarterback where you have to accept the fact that you need to be a leader. You can just kind of do your thing. But it seems like Sampson's a big-time leader, which would certainly be a positive in his category.
I don't remember a running back that was in this kind of a role. I don't.
Wow.
And there have been some great running backs. Like Jamal Lewis was a great running back. We haven't mentioned him yet. But he was not a leader of that team. Of course, he was playing some years with Peyton Manning and then T. Martin. So I don't remember a running back that fits into that category of being the leader like Dylan Sampson is. And frankly, when he got to Tennessee, I did not see him filling that role. This was a guy that was 180 pounds. And there were some people, I don't even know if LSU recruited him. But he was overlooked by a lot of people. Even though he set a rushing record. He broke Eddie Lacy's high school rushing record at his school. And Eddie Lacy went to Alabama and was a pretty darn good player. But, he's filled a role. I tell you what, he reminds me a lot of Jalen Wright in that both of them came to Tennessee undersized as running backs. Both of them were high school sprinters. Both of them put on a lot of weight. Jalen Wright didn't lose any speed. I don't know if Sampson lost any speed, but he's still plenty fast and quick. And both of them became more powerful running backs. So I see a lot of comparisons between those two.
Yeah, so, Jimmy, and by the way, our poll question is, how historic is Dylan Sampson's season? And the options are rivals, elite Vols running back seasons, like you brought up Travis Stevens. It's on the level of elite seasons in history, and we said Al Wilson in 98. I wanted to mention John Henderson in 2001, Eric Berry in 2008 and 2009. I'm sorry, John Henderson in 2000, not 2001, excuse me. But and then the third option is greatest single season in UT history, regardless of position. Which one of those do you land on, Jimmy, and why?
The one I would kick out right away is the last one, because the season's not over.
True, we're saying to this point.
Yeah, so to this point, it would rank among them. I thought Manning was every bit as good as a sophomore as he was as a senior. If you look at his sophomore numbers, he actually had a better touchdown to interception ratio as a sophomore than he did as a senior. I think when he was a senior, he took more chances, and it led to more interceptions. But a guy, there have been so many outstanding single seasons. I would put him among the greatest single seasons among running backs in Tennessee history. And he's going to break a record that was set in, 1929?
Yeah. So you're not willing to go beyond running backs and have him rivaling the Reggie Whites, Peyton Mannings, John Hendersons, and Eric Berrys?
No, not yet. and by the way, I did see Reggie White play in 1983. I was covering LSU, and LSU played a game at Neyland Stadium, and they had an All-American tackle named Lance Smith who played more than a dozen years in the NFL. Reggie White whipped him like a yard dog. I had not seen a dominating performance by defensive lineman like that. He just took Lance Smith and threw him to the side and tackled whatever running back, Dalton Hilliard, Gary James, whatever. He just dominated that game for Tennessee. He was a fantastic college player.
Jimmy, a couple of comparisons I want to make to the Travis Stevens years. I remind everybody that the show is represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. Thanks. Couple of comparisons and then one difference between Travis Stevens in 2001. And Jimmy, I'll just bounce this off of you and you tell me what you think. One, quickness was, I believe, their greatest gift, and balance, and they had a good run blocking offensive line in front of them. There were also some playmakers on the perimeter that probably opened things up at times. And they had to step into a role when their size was questioned. I know that Tennessee has Sampson listed at 5'11", but he's not 5'10". So I think there's a comparison there. The one difference I would point out is not only Sampson's leadership, which we talked about, but I do think even with his size, that he's a powerful runner. I think he does, despite his size, wear on defenses. Would you agree or disagree with that?
No, I think that's true. And he was not a power running back when he got to Tennessee. Not at all. Because he weighed 180 pounds. Neither was Jalen Wright, by the way. But yeah, I think he wears on them. And I can't really say that the offense wears on defenses because they're not running at this up-tempo warp speed, right? That was a reason that they were on defenses previously, but they're not going at this fast pace like they used to, unless they're playing Kent State or Chattanooga. So, yeah, from that perspective, I've been very impressed. I do think he can wear on them. He breaks a lot of tackles. I don't know this stat, y'all might. I'd be really curious to know what his yards after contact is, because I bet it's pretty darn good. And I'll say this too. Obviously, the offense Tennessee's running now versus when Travis Stevens played was very much different. Tennessee ran a lot of I-back in the I formation, and a lot of times had a fullback as a lead blocker. The 2001 offensive line is better than this offensive line. They were certainly better at tackle. This offensive line takes advantage of numbers, and they'll pop one right up the gut. If they got the number advantage on you, you break the line of scrimmage, you got a chance to gain a lot of yards, and Sampson has been able to do that. But I do think Sampson can wear on you as far as tackling him. He's elusive with power. That's a pretty good combination.
No, I agree. And this, I know you're a Cowboys fan. The one comparison I'll make is Emmitt Smith. And I'm not saying he's the next Emmitt Smith. They're going to be the all-time leading rusher. But I think they have the same quality. Like, people used to ask about Barry Sanders and the difference, and they compare the two. And Barry had the jump step, and you could talk about Eric Dickerson's top speed and all of that. But the one thing that I felt like really separated Emmitt Smith from the other tailbacks, and I think Dylan Sampson has the same quality. I talked to Cooper about this yesterday. If people want to check that out, he maximizes every run. Like, if to me, if the blocking allows 5 yards, he gets 5 yards. There's very few times where I look at him and I think that he's left yardage on the field. I know that's tough to kind of put a number on. It's sort of innate, but what do you make of that assertion?
Let's see if I can. Is this Rommel? Vision. I think he has great vision. Rarely does he miss a hole. Rarely did Emmitt Smith miss a hole. And I think that's one of the great attributes about him. I can't remember sitting there looking at him and saying, boy, if he'd have cut left or right, there was nobody there, he'd have gained 5 or 7 or 10 more yards. I think he's got great vision, and he has that ability to make a jump cut. He has that ability within the tackle box or to bounce it outside, whatever he needs to do. Yeah, I agree with Cooper Mays on that. I think vision is the key to that. He doesn't leave a lot of yards on there. He always is, seems like he's always going forward when he gets hit. I think that's been one of the keys to him. And he's got a pretty darn good burst. I think Emmitt's speed was a little bit underrated, but I think Sampson's faster. I think in the 40-yard dash, Sampson would beat Emmitt Smith.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have the great runoff of 2024 between Emmett and Dylan.